I was like, if they can figure, I know I can figure this out. I know I can figure this online thing out. And for me, doing business online gave me a way to make a lot of impact, to still teach, and to make money without having to leave my home.
Welcome back to Seven Figure Educator, the podcast. My name is Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas. I'm a former teacher, former principal, Harvard grad, and a full-time entrepreneur running a seven-figure education consulting business. I am thrilled to have today's guest, Jasmine Womack, CEO of the Empact Group, where they are helping experts turn their $1 million message into best-selling books and consulting programs. I need you all to get ready and buckle up because this conversation is going to blow your mind. We are going to start at the beginning of her story as an educator, a 7th grade ELA teacher, and go all the way through her journey to now running a 7-figure company. Get ready. Let's jump in. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited about this conversation. This is going to be so, so good. So first off, I just love being in community with other entrepreneurs who have a background in education, and that's you. And so let the people know your background in education. What were some of the roles that you held prior to starting your company?
Awesome. So I am a former language arts teacher. I taught middle school for about 12 years. I taught a combination of 6th, 7th, and 8th grades throughout those 12 years. During that time, I taught high achievers, gifted education classes, inclusion, general ed, and I also was the writing coach for several years. I was team lead. I helped with curriculum development during the summers, department chair, department co-chair, and 1 or 2 years, I sponsored the literary magazine, the literary magazine and the crochet club. So
come on, crochet.
Yeah. So I had fun. I enjoyed my time as a middle school educator.
First off, let the people know what your business is and what you do through your business. And then we're going to back into the journey of how you got there.
Okay. So yes, I'm a writing consultant and I work with experts, corporate professionals, entrepreneurs to help them bundle their brilliance into a best-selling book and then transform their book into high-ticket digital courses, coaching, and consulting offers. And so the thing that I do now in the digital or online space is really a spinoff or an extension of the same work that I did in the classroom. It's just that when I was in the classroom, I was working with students, with children, but now in my business, I work mainly with adults who have an expertise to package and they want to sell.
I feel like you are the poster woman for the translation between being an educator and being an entrepreneur. Because I'm like, oh, she helps authors write books. And I'm like, and she was an ELA teacher.
Yeah.
It just makes so much sense. And I think it's a beautiful example too of just how far and wide our skill set as educators can take us. And so you have a 7-figure business. First off, we're going to start there. And then we're going to back into how you got there. So I know a little bit about your story, but I want you to tell the people why you made the decision to start your business. Because when you started your business, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't just, I'm going to start my business. You were still working for a little bit while you're building your business. So tell folks, what made you even start your business? Hey there, I know you're enjoying this conversation, but I just wanted to pop in real quick to make sure that you knew about 7-Figure Educator Live. It is the event for Black education consultants, and I host it as an opportunity for you to get in the room and get the transformation that you need for your education consulting business to cross the 7-figure mark. So I want you to head to the show notes and click the link, 7figureeducator.com, to be able to learn all about the event and get your seat so that way you can join us. I'll see you there.
So if I go back to the beginning of my career as an educator, I used to have a lot of different side hustles. And I knew a lot of teachers who had side hustles where they were making cakes on the side, candles on the side, doing all types of things because teachers wanted to make more money. And oftentimes they would give so much to their students or after school on the weekends, but the time that we put in didn't reflect in our checks that we got. I knew so many teachers inside the school who wanted to still make extra money, but they needed to just do it on their own time. Throughout my tenure as an educator, my time as an educator, I tried my hand at several businesses, whether it was having an MLM, I did Melaleuca, the Noni Juice tea tree oil, like trying to get everybody at the school to sign up under me, all those things. At one time, what was it that It Works was that crazy rap thing. So during those times, it wasn't my own business, but I was still learning a lot of business strategy. I was going to business meetings. I was learning how to get on the phone, how to attract and cultivate leads. I was learning all of those things. And I didn't know that that's what I was learning. I was learning how to host in-person workshops in home because those are the things you had to do if you wanted to sell the product. And then we all learned, to be a product of the product, right? During that time, I tried my hand at different multi-level marketing companies. They didn't work out for me. And so after my third year of teaching, I actually tried my hand with a non-emergency transportation company. So...
Girl, I'm learning all these little secrets and gems. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I tried my hand at with a non-emergency transportation company. It was someone that I knew at the time. They were into transportation. They brought it to my attention, thought it might be a good idea. So I was like, okay, well, let's try it. So I had just purchased my home. I had purchased an investment property, and that was like right around 2008. And they were giving money if you purchased a home at that time. So I used that money to purchase some vans so that we could get started. And and so I entered into a world of transportation where I was driving these vans. I'm like, this ain't for me. So we ended up hiring a driver. My partner, they drove one van. We hired someone to drive the other van, and I was subbing. I was back in the school subbing just to make extra money because it was still a new business. But during that time, that was my first time hitting $10,000 and $12,000 months in my business. But then the employee that we hired, she ended up getting into like 2 accidents within 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
With special needs people on the van, which was a totally different type of liability. The insurance alone put us out of business because we had to repair people's cars. And then our insurance premiums went up. And as a new business at that time, we just couldn't afford that. And I went back into education. And during that time, I always wanted to write a book. So I was always telling people, I'm writing a book. It never got done. Fast forward, got married, got divorced, got married again a few years later. And I was on bed rest with my son. I was put on bed rest at 6 months. So there I was in the house eating snacks. I think I was eating when you're pregnant, you eat crazy stuff all the time. So my thing was frozen fruit. It was frozen fruit and beet juice.
Together or separate?
No, separate.
Okay.
So the Naked brand juice, they had this beet juice. And after I had the baby, after I had my son, I tried to drink. I was like, this is disgusting. But while I was pregnant, it was just the best thing on the planet. But I was sitting there at home drinking this juice or either eating this frozen fruit, watching the Kardashians, keeping up with Kardashians every day. Everybody's at work. The kids are at school. I'm at home. And I said, you know what? What if God set me down so that I could finish my book during this time? I said, one thing that I do know is that I can't go back to work the same way that I left. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish it up. I didn't know what was going to happen except for that I feel like I had some kind of push within my gut or within my soul to finish it. Like it was nagging. I couldn't let go of it. And that had been a dream of mine for 10 years. And I had procrastinated for 10 years because I come from academia. So I was writing and trying to critique and edit everything that I was writing while I was writing. And I could not get it done. But in that moment, when I said, I'm going to go ahead and finish my book, it was like a mental shift. And I finished my book 12 days later. And then 18 months later, I had made 6 figures in my business and was walking away from education.
Okay. So let me process like all the gems that you just shared, because I think there are a few leadership lessons that people can take from what you just shared. So first off, the fact that your current business is multiple iterations of like where you started.
Yes.
So like, first off, my mind is blown that you had this like transportation company, because that little fun fact I did not know. And then
it was called Peace Transportation.
Come on, Peace.
Yeah.
Come on, riding in peace.
Yeah.
We're here for this. We're so here for this. And I think what's even more fascinating, knowing you and your business now, and to know that story of that original business and that accident and the impact and how that closed the business. But it's like that didn't discourage you from moving forward in the next iteration of your business.
Right.
And so did you have, and I'm making the assumption that you weren't discouraged and didn't have any fear. Is that an accurate assumption? Or were you just like, nah, we just gonna do this again?
I had a lot of fear, like, well, at the time I was unmarried, I didn't have children. So my thing was, let me capitalize on this moment. So if I just stay stuck while I'm here in my 20s, I need to make good use of this time. Now, I definitely was discouraged because I learned some things about going into business with a partner and not having proper documentation, not having proper agreements in place. And I also even learned some things about taking on most of the risk. I took on most of the risk of that business, but I also learned about just trying something new. My thing was I wanted to try my hand out of the classroom. I've always had an interest in business, and that was my opportunity to try. I was like, all I had was me. So I'm like, I can take care of me, I can make it happen. But after I had children, after I had my daughter, and then I had my son, a few years later, the stakes were a little bit higher. So I had to move a little bit more methodically. However, the goal was still the same. Even at that point in time, it was even stronger because now it's like I'm at home. I'm getting paid 60% of what I normally get paid for. I'm getting paid on short-term disability. I'm getting paid 60% of my pay at a time when I need income the most. And I had to have a C-section with my son because he was breech. I was able to, stay out that entire time, but I had to go back to work. And I had to go back to work, and he was as big as my forearm. And I had to leave him with people I didn't know. And I'm like, I didn't want that, and I also knew that as my children grew, and my husband at the time, he worked for the railroad. So his job required him to travel. And he was gone for sometimes days at a time. And then when he would come home, he was tired from being gone for days, being on the road in these awful, I won't say awful, just uncomfortable conditions, and he was either asleep or trying to spend time with the children. So, and then we were trying to fit in whatever time together we could get in. So I'm like, somebody has to be stable. So at that point in time, like I had finished my master's and I had just finished my specialist degree around the time we got married, and my son was born a year later. But my thing is, if I go into leadership, because I had my specialist in leadership at that time, so I could have gone on into becoming an assistant principal into administration. But I knew that if I went into administration, it was going to require my summers, the summers that I wanted to be with my children. It was going to require more of my time in the evenings. And it was going to make me have to do a lot of things I didn't want to do with adults. And so I said, what is my option? I don't feel like I should have to choose. And I was at that point where I felt like I had to choose between either my career or my family, because of my own personal circumstances. I was like, I've got to do something. I don't know what's going to happen with this book, but I feel God telling me you need to write this. And I don't know how you or the listeners feel about the power of the prophetic, but it had been prophesied to me several years before by two different people on two different occasions about that book. So when I felt this feeling I couldn't fight anymore. I just went ahead and did it. And literally that was the beginning of the rest of my life. That time at home during, while I was at home on maternity leave, it was very beneficial for me, not just because I wrote my book during that time, but also Periscope was popping during that time. I don't even know if people still say popping.
Popping Periscope.
Periscope was hot during that time. And I was becoming introduced to a lot of entrepreneurs who were live streaming. Live streaming was new. And so I couldn't sleep at night because I was pregnant. So I would be up listening to these people teaching about how they made $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on the internet from ebooks and from other things. And I'm like, well, hold up. You were working at a gas station and then you went and created this digital product and you've been able to make this amount of money. And here I am. I have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. I'm about to finish my specialist degree. The same things that you're talking about, you're doing, I've done in my programs. We've had to, do webinars and things in the programs that I was a part of. I was like, if they can I know I can figure this out. I know I can figure this online thing out. And for me, doing business online gave me a way to make a lot of impact, to still teach, and to make money without having to leave my home.
So I feel like this episode is going to push our listeners to just completely reconceptualize how they can make money.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to force them to reconceptualize, I think, the moments of disruption that they're experiencing. And I just heard one thing that you said that stuck out to me is you getting 60% of your pay when you were on bed rest, which I think that's one of many examples in education where we normalize scarcity. Because the moment you said that, I thought about as a principal in the school district that I worked with, when folks would take a day off, they would get charged $50 for a substitute.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so things like that, where it's just like you get charged to take a day off, you only get 60% of your pay when you're getting ready to bring life into this world. Like those are the things that we accept and tolerate in education. And what I think is so beautiful about you and your story is that you have created what your heart desired. And knowing how, one of the things I deeply respect about you is the way you are committed to your family, the way you are committed to your health, where I'm like, this girl is meal prepping. She is on the treadmill at 5 a.m. And that is the life that she's created because that is her greatest heart's desire. And she's been able to do that through her business. Yeah. And so the question I have, my brain is processing multiple things. I'm like, this is so good. So first off, just to make this purely black and white, because you said when you first started your business, 18 months to your first 6 figures.
Yes.
And how much was your salary at that time as an educator? Do you recall?
$57,000 after 12 years with 3 degrees. I didn't get credited for my specialist degree because I wasn't working in leadership. So here in the state of Georgia, they changed the rules because everybody started getting these degrees and they started having to pay people for the pay scale. So they changed them to where you no longer got paid according to your level of education. You only got paid for that level of education if you were working in that field. So even though I had my specialist degree in educational leadership, I was not getting paid for that degree because I wasn't in an official leadership position. And I was department chair. But because I didn't hold a title of assistant principal or academic coach, which is what I was working towards, academic coach in the new county that I had gone to at that time. But because I was not out of the classroom and because I did not hold a leadership position, they would not compensate me for that degree. And I always knew I want to find a way to get paid for this degree.
So, and I think that's even a sermon within itself of how we love to go back to school and get degrees, and that doesn't necessarily make you money.
Right.
Versus in your business, your business can actually make you more money than what a degree would in education.
I've made my degree, I've made money multiple times over for my master's degree because I have a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. And so I got paid on the tier 5 in the state of Georgia, but in my business, I can get paid $5,000 or $10,000 in a day for helping somebody to outline a course, helping somebody to outline a book. I just created a 6-figure package where part of that package is a done for you.
How many figures?
6-figure.
Okay, continue. 6-figure packages.
It's a 6-figure package where part of the package, you sit down with me and we create the curriculum for your book and not the book, your course or your consulting offer, along with the resources. So I'm thinking about, I learned how to do all that when I was teaching. We had to create worksheets, but we had to adapt worksheets or, apply them to different learning styles and learning levels. I just take the same strategies that I use in the classroom. And because I know how to do it, and because I know how to set everything up where you're looking at your metrics to look at the assessment or the end goal, and I do that in my coaching business. My degree might have cost me $30,000, but now I can get paid 6 figures
with one offer, with one client.
With one offer for helping someone to do that, because that can make them multiple 6 figures or even millions of dollars if they market it and sell it right.
So first off,
and people don't want to think. People don't want to listen. All of you said, all of you have a skill set. People don't want to think. And a lot of people don't have the skill set that teachers have. They don't know how to design. They don't even know how to think critically or conceptually when it comes to instruction or when it comes to content. So there are so many companies that will pay you for your skill set, will pay you for instructional design, curriculum design. There are businesses, there are business owners who will pay you for it.
First off, somebody got free, okay? Somebody got free with thinking, well, will they pay me for my services? Like, you just answered the question. The answer is yeah.
Absolutely.
That is the answer. Here's what I'm curious about, because I think what's so unique around your business and the work that you do that separates you from folks who might be supporting other offers is you think about it holistically as a business strategy.
Right.
So it's not just, well, I'm going to help you write a book. It's how do I help you monetize the book? And when I say monetize, it's not selling the book. It's attaching the book to a business model or service. And the book is the anchor, and you help people backwards plan. What is the service model? Given my book, this is my framework. So what does that mean in terms of my offers, my content, all those things, which nobody is doing, which is so unique. When you first started your business, because I think some people have the misconception that the business they start with is the business they will always have. So did you have that level of clarity when you first?
No.
So how did it evolve? Because so when you first started, was it mostly focused on helping people write the books, and then it evolved into some of the business strategy? Kind of walk us through the evolution of your business model and services.
Absolutely. So when I first started, I had my book. And I was talking about it all the time online. So people began reaching out. Can you come speak here? Can you come speak there? So it started out with my book and me speaking. And then because people knew that I had a background in education, and now because I had a book, then came the inquiries. Can you help me with mine? Can you edit mine? I was charging bottom of the barrel. I did not have the confidence to charge. So one of my first editing clients, I hardly charged her because she was very elderly, but she was one of the worst clients. So I was and I ended up, I did the job. I did more work for her for free, and she kept coming back with complaints about, and I was like, ma'am, I edited, I laid it out for you. I've done this, I've done that. And so she kept comparing my work to something that somebody at the Senior Citizens Center told her. And I'm like, listen, ma'am.
Girl.
And I reached back out to the person that referred. I was like, do you know that the person that you referred me to is this? Well, yeah, she can be like, why did you refer them to me? So that's when I knew it wasn't me. People began to reach out to me to ask me to help them with their books. And at first I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I didn't have the confidence to help anybody else. So at the time I was selling my book and speaking but I also began doing these online challenges. And from there, I ended up starting a membership community. Okay. And so ladies were paying me like maybe $25 per month to be in my professional development membership community. And all of it was based on my book. So that was like my first taste of recurring revenue. And from there, that's when people began asking me, can you help me with my book? And I was sending them to a friend of mine who published books. And she was like, well, they're asking you, why are you sending them to me? Meanwhile, I had been praying, God, please show me. You told me how to write this book. I feel like I'm supposed to grow this business, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And people were coming to me and I was turning them away. You ever heard that analogy of, where it was somebody that was stuck out at sea and a boat came by and they said, no, I'm waiting. I forgot how the analogy goes. I forgot how the story goes, but they ignore the boat because it doesn't look the way they think it should look. It wasn't the solution they thought was coming. And then another boat comes and they ignore that one too. They end up drowning. They get to heaven and say, God, I prayed for you. I prayed that you would help me. And God said, I sent you 2 boats. Why didn't you get on one? That's where I was. So I was praying for a breakthrough in my business. All these people were coming to me to ask me to help them. And I was turning them away because it didn't look like what I thought it should look like. I said, you know what? This is going to be too much like my job. I don't want to help people write books. I edit kids writing all the time. I do not want to do that. This ain't it. Until it was my husband and my friend who sat me down. They were like, if people are coming to you for business, you need to take the business. And I thought about that thing. And then I fasted for like 2 weeks. I stopped everything because at that time I was talking about relationships. I thought I was supposed to be some relationship guru. And I was running in my neighborhood one morning and I felt the Spirit of the Lord say, you need to teach people how to write their books and build their businesses. So here it goes again. I was like, you know what? Who's going to pay me for that? But then I sat down and thought about, nobody's paying me now. So I said, you know what? Well, what do I have to lose? And the thing about it is that I was already doing it behind the scenes. I just wasn't promoting it. So when I actually started promoting it and sharing the work that I was doing, showing the book covers I was working on, sharing the client in Ireland or in Canada whose books I was helping to publish virtually, it started taking off. And I was like, literally, that was the answer to my prayer. And it was already tied to a skill set that I had and that I had cultivated for years. Only for me to find out, and that was in 2017. In 2018, we hit 6 figures in our business. And I ended up walking away from my job. And in 2020, the pandemic hit. And during that time, I created courses and did other things. But in 2020, the pandemic hit. And I found out through my first cousin on my father's side. My father wasn't in my life growing up. But I found out from my first cousin through my father's side that my great-great-great-grandmother had a publishing company called the New and Living Way Publishing Company in Tennessee in 1921. So I'm like, here I was literally 100 years later, following in the same footsteps that those before me had started. And that's when I knew, oh, I'm doing legacy work. And everybody on that side of my family is educators. Half of my mom's side is educators. And my mom is a skilled writer too. I was like, I'm doing legacy work.
Which underscores that it's possible to get paid and have impact.
Absolutely. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy because it hasn't been easy. Anything with businesses, there's ebbs and flows. There are ups and downs. There are times when you don't know how to do what the next thing should be. But that's when you lean into your faith, you lean into your community. You sit down and pull out the whiteboard and start strategizing and writing down the ideas that come. And it'll come to you. You can partner with someone. They'll give you an idea that'll help you go to the next level. You put it together and you move forward. You just move through the challenges.
So I think you have a really unique perspective because you've grown your business to 7 figures. And there are likely listeners that we have that are still hovering at the 6-figure mark, maybe multiple 6 figures, and they either are dreaming of 7 figures or they're wondering if 7 figures is possible. What would you say was like the match that just like lit a fire in your business to cross over to the 7-figure mark?
When I learned about creating high ticket offers and when I had the confidence to charge at that level, that's when I knew.
And how do you define high ticket? I know how we define it, but for the sake of the audience, because some people are like, ooh, high ticket, $4,000, like
$20,000 and above. And so when I began to learn how to package high ticket offers, $10,000, $20,000 and above, it became real for me. And then when I started being able to help clients do it as well, while they're still in education, while they're, still a professor at a college, or while they're still an administrator at a high school, I'm like, you can do it. And it's better to go high ticket than low ticket because you can provide a premium service, give absolute excellence, get paid what you should be paid, especially considering your credentials. And you don't have to work with a lot of people. And so that's one of the issues that I had when I first started. I was charging very low prices and having to work with I was working with a lot of people, and I got burned out when really I really just needed to raise my prices, work with better quality people, and I would have been able to manage my business and working a lot better than I did after it started to take off.
Something you said that I'm coming back to, given what you just shared, was the elderly person whom was a headache. And you also used the word, I was charging bottom of the barrel prices.
$300. Right, not even per word, per project.
So I think there is a lesson in that we can glean from you, is that some people, their business is hard, or 7 figures feels hard because you're charging too low.
Yes.
And there's like the rational technical part of that, of if you're charging $1,000, how many clients do you need in order to cross the 7-figure mark?
Right.
Well, you need 1,000 clients.
Right.
And typically the $1,000 offer is really something that should be priced $20,000, $30,000.
Right.
So if you being the only person, because if you're charging $1,000, you can't afford a team. So you're the only person delivering on this package that's underpriced, and now 7 figures feels hard. And it feels hard because you have to serve so many people. And then 9 times out of 10, the people you're serving are requiring too much of you.
Yes.
Because of who you're attracting.
And the mindset behind it. I paid you this, so you supposed to.
I paid you $1,000, and so I paid you $300, and so you should be able to give me a 6-figure business.
Listen, I have had people disappear. Like back when I was charging $500 or $1,000 for services, and we're supposed to work together for 6 weeks, for 8 weeks. They go ghost. They won't respond to an email, won't respond to a call, won't respond to a DM. Pop up a year later. Well, I paid for the. Man, that program didn't even exist anymore. Like, yes, you paid for it for the 8 weeks that you were supposed to be in it, but you left and didn't say anything to anybody. And we tried to contact you. We did this, we did that. We didn't know where you went. We were checking on you.
And what's interesting about that is like, what type of person remembers what they spent a few $100s on X amount of years ago? You know what I mean?
Like, right. Like somebody holds grudges.
Someone who has a jacked up relationship with money, if you are still so tied to, I barely remember yesterday.
Yeah.
Let alone what I spent $500 on a year ago, 2 years ago, or 300 ago. But to your point of like, that's who you attract when you are charging so low.
Right.
So
people who nickel and dime you.
Nickel, dime, penny, quarter. Listen, all of the things. So a conversation that I would love to pivot to, because I can't have it with many people, is the backside of 7 figures. And I think there is a lot of forward facing, I call it LLC Twitter conversation around the pretty things of 7-figure businesses, 8-figure businesses, such as the revenue, the offers, the photo shoots, like the things that are glamorous.
Yes.
And then when you cross the 7-figure mark, and we've had some conversations about this, there's an infrastructure that now becomes non-negotiable.
Yes.
And so what are 1 or 2 pieces of the infrastructure? And I'm excited to hear your answer because I know how diligent you are about your infrastructure. Like you don't play about your infrastructure.
Can't.
And so what are 1 to 2 infrastructure pieces that when you cross the 7-figure mark, you were like, this is something that is now a non-negotiable, but it's something that a lot of people aren't talking about?
I would say 3. Number 1 is financial infrastructure.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, because
financial
them
infrastructure
screenshots is cute, but if you ain't got no P&L statement, you don't know what it says.
Listen, that financial infrastructure, and I would even go so far as to say, not even doing your numbers yourself. Get out of that accounting software. You need a CFO at that point. You need somebody to balance your books for you. You need a financial advisor and a tax strategist.
Oh, girl, they ain't ready for this.
All 3. Because you need someone that's going to show you how to make your money make more money, which is where the financial advisor comes in at. You need somebody that's going to help you reduce your tax liability, which is where the tax advisor, the tax strategist is going to come in at. And you need someone that you can speak to multiple times per week. I mean, not per week, per month, about what you have coming in, what you have going out, what you might need to increase, what you might need to decrease, and to make sure that you're keeping an accurate log of all of your numbers and expenditures. It's important for people to understand that, yes, we make 7 figures in our business, but we still have to pay ourselves a salary. So the 7 figures goes into the business, but then you become, where we are, an employee of the business. And eventually we'll hire a CEO to take our position so they can do the day-to-day running of the company while we still own it. You know, and even doing holding companies and all that, this is a whole different conversation. But financial infrastructure. Learning how to understand tax laws and this, that, and the other. So yes, financial. Number 2 is automation. You're going to have to get your systems in place because you might be able to get to, I know high ticket coaches that have gotten, or consultants that have gotten to $400K with no systems in place, but they're not going to be able to get past that by themselves. So you need certain things like the processes or the procedures that you do every single day or that are done on a routine basis. They need to be automated. They need to be documented so that someone else can come and do them. And they also need to be automated as much as possible. And you also need team. You can't do it by yourself. So you're going to have to either learn how to start hiring or hire someone, an HR consultant, to hire for you. And that's the part that gets a lot of new entrepreneurs.
And when you say team, do you mean contractors or employees?
No, you would need, I honestly, at this point, I use a blend of employees and contractors. But what I'm seeing now is that really you need to go towards all employees, you know, because even with contractors, you might pay a contractor an amount, certain things, a certain amount to do this, another one a certain amount to do that. But if you can have an employee that has those skill sets, and that way you don't have to be all over the place. I don't have any problem with contractors though. If you can find some dedicated ones and they do good work. But you can't, when you get to a certain level in business, you can't and should not have a full team of contractors. You at least need 1 or 2 solid employees.
Right. The analogy that I use is, and again, to underscore your point, contractors in isolation are not good or bad. They just are what they are. And one of the things you have to understand in terms of context as a CEO is that you cannot control their time.
Right. You can't.
And because you cannot control the time of a contractor, that means that you are in their queue. Which means, how I like to say it, is you are a side chick. Where when they are ready, they will let you know. You were not the main. You were in a queue.
Yep.
And I don't want to say get away with that because, again, there's a place for contractors. You can grow your business to about $500,000.
It's certain roles that contractors are okay in. But what I've learned is that for key roles, if you have just all contractors and they can't come to a meeting because they have this to do or they've got this, because with a contractor, again, they can do whatever they can do the task on their own time. So they don't have to come to a meeting. But if the meeting is, pivotal for what you have coming up, then that means that role needs to be an employee because you need everybody there, all hands on deck. Unless, of course, again, you have like some committed, dedicated contractors. They're like maybe working on a certain basis, right? But they're very clear, because I have one person on my team, she's very clear. I want to work for myself, but I will work for you. Right.
Right. And
so what we've done, we've just outlined in her contractor agreement how she has to show up and when she has to show up. Right. But because that's agreed upon, and it's in her agreement. Now, I can't say every single day when you show up, you have to wear the Empact Group logo or you have to show up here and work on this software. That's when things start.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
You can't do that.
The blending them and blurring them lines will get you caught up.
Can't do that.
This was so good. Thank you for taking the time to be able to share your story. I feel fulfilled through like your story because there are like little pieces and nuggets that I didn't even know. And it underscores everything I already knew about you, of like the fact that once she sets a goal, it's non-negotiable.
Oh, yeah.
Like that goal is happening, hell or high water.
Right.
The fact that you are clear about your vision for yourself, for your family, for your life, and you are fully tapped into the power to be able to create it. I'm grateful for the opportunity that you took time to be able to share with us and our audience. How can folks get in contact with you? Who should get in contact with you, and anything you got coming up you want folks to know about?
Oh, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, across all social media channels at the Jasmine Womack. My website is www.jasminewomack.com. And I want you to check out my book, Published and Paid. So it's Published and Paid. Write, self-publish, and launch your nonfiction book in 90 days or less. And you can go to www.published with an ED and paidbook.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.